do, we have our verse of the year. So if you wouldn't mind standing to your feet, Ephesians 3:20. And first service, set the bar high. Like literally, set the bar high. And I need you guys to shout this verse out, yell this verse. I need you to speak it as if you believe it. All right? Y'all ready? Ephesians 3:20. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Now to him who is able to do. Let's go, let's go. Give it up for yourself. You sounded great. Better than first service for sure. Better than, I was like, are y'all whispering at the end or what? But you sound great. But today's text will be from Matthew chapter 19, verses 1 through 6. And it says this: when Jesus had finished saying these things, he left Galilee and went into the region of Judea and to the other side of the Jordan. Large crowd followed him, and he had healed them there. Some Pharisees came to him to test him. Why is everybody always testing Jesus? The Pharisees, man, just haters. Anybody got haters in their life? Just, I can't go anywhere without you being here right now. These are these people. So some of the Pharisees came to him to test him, and they asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer, watch this, two, but they are now one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Everybody say separate. God, we thank you for your word. Speak in Jesus' name. Amen, amen, amen. Look to your neighbor and say, you look good as you sit. Come on, fellas, I'm trying to help you out, you know. I'm trying to help you out. Church family, wow. It's interesting. Last time I stood on this platform, I was talking about a marriage. And it's so funny how God moves and works. Yesterday, I celebrated 3 months of marriage. 3 months of marriage. Yeah, come on. Some of y'all clapping like this brother has a long way to go. He has no idea what he's getting into. 3 months of marriage. And wow, I stood on this platform because there was just some things I didn't know, right? I told you guys I didn't know that there would be that many dishes, that much trash. I didn't know that we would have to buy more and more pillows. I kid you not, this past week we bought 2 more pillows. Literally 2 more. There are more dishes now, and there's more trash. But church family, there were some things that I didn't know, but now that I'm just in marriage, it's one thing to look at someone's marriage and have a perspective. It's a completely different perspective when you're in the marriage. It's a completely different perspective. And what I've noticed is it's never the big things that trip me up. It's always the minor things. It's not the major things, it's the minor things. Minor things like, for the 1,000th time, this goes over here and not over here. For the 2,000th time, let the seat down after you use the bathroom. My girl right here, she's like, that's still happening to this day. Or hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but flush the toilet. And can I be honest? Sometimes it takes 2 flushes. For some of y'all, it may take 3, maybe 4, who knows? I even learned this, that I come from my family, when we order meals, we're not in a mood to be sharing, right? If I order a meal, this meal is solely for me. Okay? You can see where this is going. They say you marry your opposite. So my wife comes from a family where they order a bunch of stuff and they all share. So the very first time she asked me, hey, can I get some of that? I'm like, some of what? Not this. You can get an appetizer, but not this. I've had to learn, sometimes I may have to share my food. I don't like sharing my food. I'm stingy. I don't want what's on your plate. I don't want to look at your plate. I don't want to taste what you have. I want my own food. Apparently, this is called what you call tax wife. This is what they told me last service. That's what you call tax wife, and you might as well get used to it because it will happen with every meal. So I've learned that it's never really the major things that gets in the way of a marriage. It's actually the minor things. I used to get frustrated with my mom because when my mom would make fish, she would get them in these packets, and she would always tell me, don't put them in the trash, put them in a plastic bag, and then throw it away in the dumpster. Don't put it in the house, because if you leave the fish packet in the trash can, it will no longer just stink up the trash can, but it will then stink up the whole house. And could it be some of our marriages are struggling because we've ignored the minor things and we've left it up under the rug, we've ignored it, we said it is what it is, and we haven't dealt with it, and now those things have added up to where now our marriage feels like it stinks. Now our marriage is rocky. Now our marriage is struggling. Could it be that we haven't dealt with the necessary things that are so minor when you look at it on the outside? One of the things I've been getting some counsel, and it's interesting because you see how people, how long a person's been married by the way that they respond to certain challenges. They start saying things like, oh, I remember that. That's it? Man, I've been there before. Because as they gotten older and matured, they realized that situation really wasn't as big as we made it to be. And today we're going to be talking about marriage. Because in this context, Jesus is being tested by the Pharisees. And it's interesting because the Pharisees are trying to trap Jesus with this term, marriage. Women couldn't divorce back then, only men could. So the men were asking Jesus a question to test Jesus about this word marriage. They say, Jesus, can I divorce my wife over anything? In other words, can I just leave her whenever I want to? And instead of Jesus answering the question, Jesus says that man and woman becomes one flesh. Jesus is now describing what marriage truly is. No one gets married to get a divorce. And Jesus, what they're trying to do as the men, they're trying to put a man's perspective on something that God created. An ideology on something that God created, which means if God created marriage, then he designed it as well. He created it, he designed it, which means he can tell, he knows the success, he knows the recipe, and he also knows what it takes to be successful at marriage. Watch this, because there's nothing wrong with marriage. God created it. God designed it. God didn't create marriage to be flawed. There is nothing wrong with marriage is perfect. The only problem is the people aren't. Marriage is whole. But when you put two broken people in a marriage, it then becomes complicated. God designed it to be perfect. It's just people aren't perfect. And how do I know that? Because we can look at statistics today. Statistics said that 40% to 50% of marriages ends in divorce. The interesting part is those were the numbers outside of church. But it's identical as well to the people that are in the church. It's the same number. Which means that marriage is a big deal right now. It means that there's some things that we haven't talked about. It means that there's some things that is getting in the way of something that God has designed. And what the enemy has done is the enemy has created and gotten in the way of one person and one person to split them up and separate them. Look at what this verse says in, if I can find it. Look at what this verse says in 1 Peter 5, verse 8. It says this, be sober and vigilant, because your adversary, the enemy, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. The enemy is wanting to devour your marriage. The enemy is wanting to separate the enemy is wanting to bring disunity in your marriage, which means you got to be on alert. It means you got to be on guard. It means that you have to do what it takes for your marriage to be successful. Why? Because we look at the stats today, and many would say my generation and the generation that's to come does not even think marriage is important. I know I'm like going straight in. I'm a funny guy, but I just think with this topic, there's some things that we haven't talked about, to the point to where our young people don't see the importance of it. To the point to where it's like, is it even worth it? If I'm just going to get into marriage just to get divorced, then why would I get married in the first place? And we have complicated something and put a man's ideology on something that God has created and God has designed. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of things that bring separation in a marriage. Because get this, I love this here. Marriage only works when you work with it. It only works when you say, I'm willing to work. It only works when you say, I'm willing to pay the cost. It only works when it says, I'm willing to submit to this process. It only works when you say, I'm willing to step in and stay here no matter what the situation may look like. Marriage only works if you work. You can't be lazy and have a successful marriage. You can't be prideful and have a successful marriage. You can't be selfish and have a successful marriage. You have to be willing to pay the cost. And if it means laying down me for it to be successful, then that is what I have to do. If it means laying down my opinion, laying down my pride, laying down my ways, laying down the way I view finances, laying down the way that I view life, then I'll do what it takes because I love this person. And when I said I do, I made a long-term commitment. So some of the things that bring separation is this. The first thing is this, the voice of separation. I think one of the interesting parts is we can literally see that the enemy has been attacking marriage since the beginning of time. Adam and Eve. The enemy comes to Eve and says, hey, if you eat of the, are you sure you'll die if you eat of this fruit? Are you sure? Are you positive? Watch this, because the voice of separation will always begin with the question, does he really love me? Does my spouse really care about me? Does she truly think I'm capable? Does she truly think I'm worthy enough to lead this family? Does my husband really care? I know he's hearing me, but does he understand me? I'm having a hard time. Look, it starts with questions. It's in the beginning of time. Eve, are you sure you'll surely die if you eat of the fruit? And a lot of us, we're processing these questions in our minds, in our inner thoughts. And when you entertain the voices of separation, you then open the door of deception. When you question your marriage, you're now putting yourself in a place to be deceived. And when you become deceived, then you begin to live a life of a lie. Well, I guess he doesn't love me. Well, I guess she doesn't care about me. This is where it starts. And can I be honest? For some of us, it's not even our internal voice. For some of us, it could be the voices of our friends. Girl, he really said that? No way. Bro, you gonna let her disrespect you like that? You gonna let her talk to you like that? Boy, you better. If this was my wife, brother, you're not married. If this was my husband, girl, really? But it's funny, but we've allowed voices that have no qualifications to speak into our marriage. It's funny, but it would be almost as if I'm not a surgeon. I'm a preacher. But it would almost be as if I'm telling a surgeon how to operate when he's performing surgery. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to have. I don't understand the weight of what he's carrying. I don't understand the magnitude of what he's doing right now. I don't even know the names of the tools that he's using. And could it be that we've allowed people to speak into our homes that have no weight? All they have is opinions and thoughts that don't bring you closer to your husband or to your wife, but it removes you even further. Could it be that we're allowing the wrong voices in our marriages? I need people who've been through some things to speak into my life, to my marriage. I need people that said, I've been in this thing for 15 years, through sickness, through death, through heartbreak, through pain. I stuck with her. I stuck with her. I stuck with him. I stuck when there was money in the account, when there was no money in the account. I stuck with him. When she gained a little weight and when she lost weight, I stuck with her. I stuck with this person through thick and thin. I need people that's going to pour into my life that's willing to say those things. Watch this, because I don't need storytellers. I need truth tellers. I need people that's going to tell me you got pride, you got lust, you got an eye that you need to put away. There's some things that you need to kill in your life. There's some things that you need to remove out of your life. There's some things that you're allowing that you shouldn't be allowing. There's some things that not just she need to submit. And saying it like this. They say, boy, put that bird chest away. I need people who can speak into my life that are qualified. I need people in my life that can speak into my marriage that have been through some things. That is willing to hurt my feelings. That is willing to say, I don't care if it makes you angry. You're wrong. I don't care if you're upset and you're ready to leave. You got pride. You need people in your life that you can connect with, that you can grow with. Why? Because friends can either be blessings for your marriage or barriers for your marriage. So for some of us, we may need to evaluate, who are the voices that are speaking into my marriage? Because can I be honest, you don't even feel that way towards your husband or towards your wife. It's just their opinion weighs more now in your mind than what it originally did. You're looking at it through the lens of someone who has no weight, no qualifications. So I got to evaluate. I gotta understand my marriage is, I got to protect this thing. Not everybody can speak into this thing. I have to cover this thing. You want those friends who will encourage you in the right way, not lead you in the wrong way. The second thing is this, the language of separation. Proverbs 18:21 says this, that death and life are in the power of the tongue. Look to your neighbor and say, you got a tongue problem. Okay. Your breath stinks. All right, I'm trying to, let's focus, Will, focus. But what this looks like is we use language like you always, you never, how come you don't, I wish you would, you always want this, you never want this. We use language that creates these general statements. And honestly, if we just stopped and paused and said, is this how this person operates all the time? If not, then I can't make these type of statements. If not, then my perspective is not true. How I feel may be one thing, but just because I feel this way does not necessarily mean it's concrete. It's the right way. And honestly, some of our feelings lie to us to perceive our spouse in a way that they're not. I perceive you this way because this is how I feel. I perceive that you're selfish because this is how I feel. When, can I be honest, you may be selfish too. Let me get back on that because I don't want to. The reason why some of us don't have the marriage we want is directly connected to the language we use. We constantly tear down each other instead of building up each other. Listen to what Proverbs 15 verse 4 says. The soothing tongue is like a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Do my words give life to the spirit or crush the spirit? Ladies, now I've only been in this thing for 3 months, okay? Have grace on me. But ladies, I think we're all grown-ups in the room. we know that there are things that men naturally love with their eyes. We know that there's things that men want. But ladies, one of the things that men want the most is respect and honor. You say, what does that look like? Babe, I respect how you're leading this family. I honor your voice and respect your voice. I'm never going to discredit you in the decisions that you make. I respect you. I honor you. I love you. I value you. I appreciate you even when the money's not in the account. I appreciate you even when the muscles aren't there. I appreciate you. I love you. I respect you. Men want to know that they're doing a good job. Babe, you're doing a great job. Ladies, don't let a man hear good job more at work than they do at home. Don't let them hear from people that are his co-workers more than someone who is in this thing for life. Men need to know that they're doing a good job and that they're worthy and capable and smart enough. Fellas, ladies was like, about time, okay. Talk about them men. Okay, cool. Fellas, there was some research I was doing some digging. It's funny, I wasn't even preparing to talk about this, but they did a statistic, or they did a survey of women on what is the most attractive quality in guys. And they boiled it down to 3 things, but I'm only going to share one because I thought this was very interesting. And one of the things was this: kindness. Kindness. Fellas, how kind are you towards your wife? Is your words laced with kindness? Is your heart set on kindness towards your wife? Or is your words, do they cut? Do they go below the belt? Does it hurt her? Why? Because women want to feel safe, understood, loved. And fellas, the way we do this is through kindness. Through kindness, creating a place, creating space to say, babe, I got you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to provide for you. But most importantly, I'm going to be kind to you. I'm going to be kind to you. I'm going to show you that I care about you. I'm going to tell you you look good even without the makeup. Why? Because you don't have to perform for me for you to get affirmation from me. You don't have to dress up, put the makeup on, wear the heels. No, baby, you look good even with the stank breath. Breath smelling like Similac on 4 flats. I don't know why I said that. It was just a thought in my mind. Had to get it out. And I think in society, we've created this narrative of, in order for me to receive love, I have to perform for it. In order for me to receive love in my marriage, I have to perform for it. I have to have the money. I have to be the one that does this. I have to be the one that does this. I have to be the one that puts on the makeup and perform. And what happens is when we perform for affirmation, we then get tired of it. We get tired. Because if I always got to perform for you to love me, then what happens when I'm not performing? What happens when I'm not 100%? Come on, fellas, ladies, we have to love our spouse even when they're not performing. We have to love our spouse even when they didn't say good job. We have to be encouraging and kind even when the makeup didn't look good that day. We have to be affirming with our words, with our language, with the way we talk to each other. Come on, any married people in the room right now, just look at your spouse and say, babe, I love you so much. Come on, I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's awkward. But just tell them I love you. I care about you. But it's interesting. Those words satisfies your soul. Those words bring healing to your heart. It brings comfort to your body. Because I know that the person that I've said yes to and I do with is in this thing with me. Is in this thing with me. The last point is this, I want to say this here. Marriage only works when you work it. And part of that work is discovering the language that unites you, not the language that divides you. The last one is this, is the space of separation. As the keys player can come, man, I'm doing good. In the negative a little bit, oh geez. Wow, let's get to it. The space of separation. Watch this. Don't give any space in your marriage to the devil because he will always take more than you anticipated. Space is given through conflict. I think it's understandable. I've only been in this thing for 3 months, okay? And I've learned that we're just not going to see eye to eye on things for certain things. I've learned that there's some disagreements. I've learned that I'm learning. I don't want to say I've learned because I'm still learning. But I'm learning that disagreements will happen because it's two people becoming one. I heard this great example of marriage. This guy was saying marriage is kind of like making a smoothie. It's where you get a banana and a strawberry and you throw it in one blender and it blends up and makes a perfect taste. In the same way, in marriage, it's one person and another person thrown in marriage, blended up, and it makes unity. But sometimes that conflict creates this space. And we start saying things like, and we start creating habits like, well, I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight. And you sleep in the bed. Or we start saying things like, hey, I'll be back tomorrow. And we create this space between the two to the point to where there's so much distance that it's hard for us to walk hand in hand. I'm not saying give each other spaces. There's nothing wrong with giving each other space. But what I am saying is this: you can have disagreements and still walk in unity. You can have arguments and still sleep in the same bed. Is that a little too personal? You cannot see eye to eye and still tell each other that I love you. You can still be unified. Disagreements isn't trying to convince the other person that we're right. Disagreeing isn't trying to shame or humiliate the other person, but rather understanding them. And I think if we're not careful, we can create this space over this minor problem that was never meant to separate you. Watch this. Because disagreements, they're opportunities for you to unify. Like, what if you change your perspective and said, problems in this house are opportunities for us to walk in unity. Problems in our home is an opportunity for us to walk and be unified. Like, what if you made that commitment in your marriage that unity, that disagreements, they're not going to separate us, they're going to bring us closer, which means it's no longer I'm here and you're over here. It's no, baby, we are on the same side and we're fighting this problem together. I feel like I'm preaching today, but I mean, you may not like it. I may be all in your business, but that's okay. I'm just 3 months into this thing and I'm learning, but I do know that the fight is a lot easier when y'all are on the same side. I believe that. When y'all are wearing the same jersey and on the same team, you may look at it one way, I may look at it another way, but we're still on the same team. And our society has taught us and is teaching us that if you disagree, then you can't have unity. But unity is saying we disagree and we're still walking together. Which means if we want to walk in unity, then this is what we have to do. And I'm done. I'm going to say I'm going to list these 7 things. Number 1, we have to listen to have unity. Listen from the standpoint of not to respond, but listen from the standpoint to understand. We have to consider. Consider from the point of, I may actually be wrong. I may be wrong about this situation. We have to reject that inner voice or that friend that says, she's bringing this up again. Oh my God, I cannot stand when he brings this up. We have to reject that inner voice. When we reject it, then we have to focus on the problem, not the person. Sometimes we focus more on the person than the problem. So we have to focus on the problem and not the person. Then we have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to change and say, I missed the mark, I'm sorry, and I'll do better. For sometimes unity requires you to wait, because the 3 months that I've been in marriage, I've learned that some things require more than a day to talk about. It requires a process.